Beirut, 2001. Samir Halabi sat at his desk in Hezbollah's financial office, methodically counting cash. The accountant had built a reputation for precision. Every transaction documented, every shekel accounted for. But Mossad possessed something that would destroy him. A photograph capturing his acceptance of bribes from a Lebanese bank director. The image represented a death sentence within Hezbollah's ruthless internal justice system. Yet for Israeli intelligence, it became the key to infiltrating the terrorist organization's European funding empire. This is the story of Operation Ledger, how Blackmailed transformed a trusted financial keeper into Israel's most valuable informant inside Hezbollah's money networks. Samir Halabi was born in southern Beirut in 1968, during a period when Lebanon's sectarian tensions were escalating toward civil war. His childhood unfolded in the Dahieh district, a Shia-majority area that would later become Hezbollah's stronghold. The formative event came at age 14 when Israeli forces shelled his neighborhood during the 1982 Lebanon War. He survived by hiding in a basement with his family for 6 days. By age 20, Halabi had developed an obsessive attention to detail in mathematics, enrolling in American University of Beirut's accounting program, despite his family's limited resources. The capability that made Halabi valuable was straightforward. He could track complex financial flows without technology, using only ledgers and mental calculation. Associates described him as methodical, never impulsive. He worked for a Lebanese import company until 1995, when Hezbollah recruited him to manage financial records. The organization needed someone who could document Iranian funding transfers, weapons purchases, and operational expenses without creating electronic trails that intelligence services could intercept. This skill made him strategically indispensable to Hezbollah's financial infrastructure. Intelligence services had tracked Halabi peripherally since 1998, when signals intelligence captured his name in communications between Tehran and Beirut. By early 2000, Mossad concluded Halabi represented a high-value target, not for elimination, but for exploitation. The authorization to develop an approach came in March 2001, following surveillance that revealed his vulnerability. The photograph was taken on February 14, 2001. Mossad's surveillance team, operating from a safe house overlooking the Beirut Central District, captured Halabi meeting with Ahmad Khalil, director of a small Lebanese commercial bank. The meeting occurred at a cafe near the Martyrs Square. Long-range photography documented Khalil sliding an envelope across the table. Subsequent analysis identified the exchange as a bribe. Khalil was paying Halabi to approve inflated invoices for shell companies that laundered money for Hezbollah's European operations. The bribe amounted to approximately $15,000. Within Hezbollah's structure, financial corruption carried immediate consequences. The organization maintained strict internal discipline, modeled on Iranian Revolutionary Guard procedures. Theft or bribery resulted in execution, typically carried out by the internal security apparatus known as Unit 1800. Mossad analysts assessed that presenting this evidence to Hezbollah leadership would result in Halabi's death within 48 hours. This created the leverage Israel needed. Mossad's operational strategy followed a doctrine developed during the 1980s, refined through decades of recruiting assets in hostile territory. Intelligence planners called this the pressure point strategy. The logic was straightforward. Identify a target with access to valuable intelligence, discover a personal vulnerability that creates existential fear, then offer survival in exchange for cooperation. The strategy had succeeded in recruiting Palestinian militants, Syrian military officers, and Lebanese political figures. Halabi fit the profile perfectly. The obstacles facing Mossad were significant. First, Halabi lived and worked entirely within Hezbollah-controlled territory in southern Beirut, where Israeli agents could not operate openly. Second, his deep ideological commitment to Hezbollah's cause meant he might choose death over betrayal. Third, any approach carried risk of exposure. If Halabi reported the contact to his Hezbollah handlers, the entire operation would collapse and potentially compromise other Israeli intelligence activities in Lebanon. Despite these challenges, planners identified an opportunity in Halabi's pragmatism. Psychological profiles suggested he valued survival above ideology, a trait that could be exploited. Within 8 weeks, all elements would be in position. But first, Mossad needed to establish contact without triggering Halabi's defensive instincts or alerting Hezbollah's counterintelligence network. The approach required building a credible intermediary who could reach Halabi without raising suspicion. Mossad recruited a Lebanese Christian businessman named Michel Aoun, not to be confused with the political figure of the same name. Aoun operated legitimate import-export businesses throughout Beirut and had peripheral contact with Hezbollah's financial networks through his commercial activities. What Hezbollah didn't know was that Aoun had been a paid Mossad informant since 1994, providing intelligence on Lebanese political developments. His cover was authentic because his business was real. During the operations planning phase, Halabi experienced what intelligence professionals recognize as cognitive dissonance between professional competence and moral compromise. Intercepted communications from March 2001 reveal him discussing family matters with his wife, mentioning concern about providing for their 3 children and anxiety about their future. Analysts noted nothing operationally relevant in the conversations. He told his wife he felt trapped between organizational loyalty and personal financial survival. When the bribe situation developed, this internal conflict created the psychological vulnerability that Mossad would exploit. The pressure manifested in documented changes to his behavior. Colleagues later reported he became more withdrawn during this period. By April 12, 2001, the operation entered its execution phase. Mossad's case officer in Tel Aviv, operating through encrypted communications with Aoun, transmitted authorization to make initial contact. The window was narrow. Intelligence suggested Hezbollah's internal security conducted random financial audits every 4 to 6 months. Halabi's next audit was projected for August 2001. The timeline gave Mossad approximately 16 weeks to recruit and establish operational protocols before Halabi's vulnerability might be discovered through other means. The recruitment infrastructure required multiple layers of operational security. Mossad established protocols for contact that would protect both the organization and its potential asset. The communications architecture utilized a system called the drop-and-retrieve method, developed for high-risk urban environments. Michel Aoun would serve as the initial contact point, but never directly reference Israeli intelligence. Instead, the approach would frame the situation as a business opportunity with unspecified foreign investors who had become aware of Halabi's vulnerability. The technical equipment selected for the operation was a button camera manufactured by Israeli defense contractor Rafael Advanced Defense Systems. The specific model was designated the Microvision 3, measuring 17 millimeters in diameter and 5 millimeters deep. The device could photograph documents at close range with sufficient resolution to read 8-point text. It stored up to 200 images on internal flash memory and was powered by a lithium battery lasting approximately 48 hours between charges. The camera's exterior was designed to resemble a standard plastic shirt button, complete with threading holes. When activated by squeezing the button between thumb and forefinger, it would capture an image silently with no visible flash. Communication protocols required Halabi to never transmit information electronically. Instead, he would remove the camera's memory chip during bathroom breaks, storing it in a dead-drop location, a loose brick in a wall near the Sabra neighborhood mosque, 2 kilometers from his office. Mossad's collection team would retrieve the chip within 6 hours, photograph the contents, and return an empty chip to the same location. This analog system prevented any electronic signature that Hezbollah's counterintelligence might detect. Escape protocols were established before recruitment. If Halabi faced imminent exposure, he would signal danger by placing a red cloth in his apartment window. Mossad maintained 2 extraction routes: a maritime route using a fast boat from Beirut's coast to Cyprus, and an overland route through the Syrian border into Jordan, where Israeli intelligence maintained safe houses. Both routes required Halabi to reach specific locations without surveillance, a challenging requirement in Hezbollah-controlled territory. The planning consumed 6 weeks. By May 20, 2001, all technical elements were positioned in Beirut through diplomatic pouches and commercial shipping channels. Amaon had 12 days before making first contact with Halabi, time to coincide with a legitimate business transaction that would provide natural cover for their meeting. June 1, 2001. At 1800 hours local time, Michel Aoun entered the Al Rawda Cafe in the Hamra district, where Halabi occasionally met business contacts outside Hezbollah's immediate sphere. The location was chosen deliberately, public enough to seem innocent, but not so public that conversations would be overheard. Aoun had arranged the meeting through intermediaries, framing it as a discussion about import documentation for commercial goods. Halabi arrived 20 minutes late, a cautious habit that allowed him to observe whether the meeting location showed signs of surveillance or setup. The initial conversation focused on legitimate business matters. Aoun discussed shipping procedures and customs documentation for 15 minutes, establishing rapport and demonstrating knowledge of Halabi's professional domain. Only after this foundation did Aoun shift the discussion. "I've been approached by foreign investors interested in Lebanese financial networks," he said, keeping his language deliberately vague. "These investors have information about certain transactions that could create difficulties for people in your position." Halabi's response was immediate suspicion. He asked who these investors represented. Aoun refused to provide details, stating only that they had surveillance capabilities and had documented activities that Hezbollah leadership would find troubling. The conversation lasted 8 more minutes before Halabi stood to leave, saying he had no interest in whatever scheme Aoun was proposing. This resistance was anticipated. Mossad's psychological assessment predicted Halabi would need time to process the threat before accepting its reality. Over the next 11 days, Halabi received 3 messages through intermediaries, each slightly escalating the pressure. The first message, delivered June 4 through a commercial courier, contained a sealed envelope with a single photograph. The image of him receiving the envelope from bank director Ahmad Khalil. No text accompanied the image. The second message arrived June 8th, containing a detailed accounting of the bribe amount and the specific shell companies involved in the money laundering scheme. The third message, delivered June 12th, was explicit. "Your choice is survival through cooperation or exposure to your employers. You have 72 hours to contact Aoun." By June 14, 2001, Halabi's psychological defenses had eroded. He understood the mathematics of his situation. Hezbollah would execute him if the information surfaced, but cooperation might offer a path forward. That evening, he called Aoun using a payphone in neutral territory, requesting another meeting. The window for recruitment had opened. June 16, 2001. The second meeting occurred at a commercial warehouse Aoun owned in the Beirut Port District. The location provided privacy and security. Aoun could ensure no surveillance, and the industrial setting gave legitimate cover if anyone questioned Halabi's presence. This meeting lasted 90 minutes. Aoun explained the terms directly. Halabi would photograph financial documents using equipment provided to him. In exchange, the evidence of his bribery would remain hidden, and he would receive payment of $5,000 monthly, deposited in a European bank account under a false name. Additionally, if Halabi ever faced imminent danger, extraction would be arranged to relocate him and his family outside Lebanon. What Aoun didn't tell Halabi was that Mossad had no intention of ever exposing the bribery evidence, regardless of his cooperation. The threat's value lay in its potential, not its execution. Exposing Halabi would eliminate a potential asset without gaining intelligence. The $5,000 payment was real, however. Mossad understood that sustained cooperation required both threat and incentive. Halabi's questions revealed his analytical mind working through the operational security. He asked how he would communicate without detection. He asked about the photography equipment and whether it could be traced. He asked what would happen if Hezbollah discovered the operation. Aoun answered each question with partial truth, enough to satisfy Halabi's concerns while maintaining operational security. The critical moment came when Halabi asked directly whether Israeli intelligence was behind the approach. Aoun neither confirmed nor denied, stating only that foreign intelligence services had interests in disrupting Hezbollah's financial networks. The meeting ended with Halabi agreeing to preliminary cooperation. He would take the button camera and test photographing documents in his office over the next week. If the process seemed workable without raising suspicion, he would proceed. If he believed the risk was too high, he would return the equipment and accept whatever consequences followed. This conditional agreement gave Halabi a sense of control, a psychological necessity for maintaining an asset's cooperation over extended operations. June 18, 2001. Halabi received the Microvision 3 camera through a dead drop at a construction site near his apartment. The device was concealed inside a box of commercial shirt buttons, identical to others except for the memory chip and activation mechanism. Accompanying the camera were detailed instructions written in Arabic, explaining the squeezing activation method and the maximum photographing distance of 30 centimeters. The instructions also explained the dead drop procedure and the 6-hour collection window. For the next 8 days, Halabi conducted test operations in his office. Hezbollah's financial records were maintained in physical ledgers stored in a secure room within the organization's administrative building in southern Beirut. Halabi had authorized access to this room as part of his duties. The room contained filing cabinets with documentation of cash transfers from Iran, records of weapons purchases made through European arms dealers, and payment records for Hezbollah operatives stationed throughout Europe. These documents represented exactly the intelligence Mossad sought. The test phase revealed operational challenges. The room had no windows, requiring Halabi to position documents near the single overhead light to ensure sufficient exposure for clear photographs. The camera's silent operation proved effective. Colleagues working in adjacent offices noticed nothing unusual. However, the 30-centimeter photographing distance meant Halabi had to appear to be closely examining documents, a behavior that fit naturally with his role as financial records keeper. June 26, 2001. Halabi deposited his first memory chip at the dead drop location. The chip contained 8 test photographs of financial ledgers documenting Iranian Revolutionary Guard payments to Hezbollah, totaling approximately $3 million over a 6-month period. Mossad's collection team retrieved the chip at 0200 hours the following morning, photographed the contents at a Tel Aviv analysis center, and returned an empty chip to the dead drop by 0800 hours. The quality of the photographs exceeded expectations. Analysts could read account numbers, dates, and recipient names clearly. The operation now entered sustained intelligence collection. Over the following 5 years, Halabi would photograph documents on approximately 140 separate occasions, typically spacing his activities 3 to 4 weeks apart to avoid establishing patterns that might attract attention. Each collection cycle followed identical protocols. Photograph documents over 2 to 3 days, extract the memory chip in a bathroom break, place it in the dead drop, retrieve the replacement chip within 12 hours, and continue normal work activities. What Halabi didn't know during these early months was that Mossad had assigned a dedicated team of 6 analysts to process his intelligence. The team, operating from a secure facility in Tel Aviv, cataloged every document he photographed, cross-referencing names and account numbers with existing intelligence databases. This process revealed Hezbollah's European financial network with unprecedented detail. Shell companies in Belgium, Germany, and France. Bank accounts in Cyprus and Switzerland. And a sophisticated system of money transfers using legitimate commercial businesses as covers. During October 2001, Halabi photographed documents that identified a Hezbollah operative named Hassan Nasrallah, not the organization's leader, but a financial coordinator with the same name operating in Germany. This operative managed a network of car dealerships that generated legitimate profits while also serving as money laundering fronts for Hezbollah. The intelligence from Halabi's photographs allowed Mossad to track the complete financial flow. Iranian funds transferred to Lebanese accounts, converted to European currency through shell companies, then distributed to operatives across Europe for weapons purchases and operational expenses. The psychological toll on Halabi manifested gradually. During a routine photography session in March 2002, he experienced what handlers call legend drift. The psychological blurring when false identity feels more real than the original. He found himself mentally defending the act of espionage as necessary to protect his family, even as he betrayed the organization he'd served for 7 years. In one incident documented in his post-operation debrief, he nearly forgot to activate the camera while photographing a particularly valuable document detailing weapons shipment from Syria. He recovered quickly, but the lapse revealed increasing psychological strain. Assessment from his handlers indicated sustainable operational capacity, but recommended monitoring for signs of breakdown. But the mission continued. By 2003, the intelligence Halabi provided had revealed structural details of Hezbollah's financial operations. Mossad learned that the organization maintained parallel financial systems, one for military operations funded directly by Iran, and another for political and social welfare activities, funded through donations and legitimate business profits. The separation prevented financial pressure on one system from affecting the other. Halabi had access to both systems, providing Israel with comprehensive understanding of Hezbollah's resource allocation. The near-miss incidents that inevitably occur in extended operations began in April 2004. Hezbollah's internal security unit conducted a surprise audit of financial records, examining documents from the previous 6 months. Halabi was required to present ledgers and explain various transactions to Unit 1800 investigators. The audit lasted 3 days. During this period, Halabi maintained his composed demeanor, answering questions with the same methodical precision that had made him valuable to the organization. The investigators found no irregularities because Halabi had never altered or removed documents. He had only photographed them. The audit concluded with commendation for his meticulous record-keeping. What created anxiety for Mossad during this period was the communication blackout. Halabi couldn't signal the audit was occurring without raising suspicion, and he couldn't access the dead drop while under heightened scrutiny. For 11 days, no new intelligence arrived from the operation. Mossad's handlers discussed whether to activate emergency extraction protocols, concerned that Halabi might have been compromised. The decision was made to wait. Premature extraction would destroy the intelligence pipeline unless absolutely necessary. When Halabi's next dead drop arrived on April 23, 2004, containing photographs of the audit documents themselves, handlers understood he had maintained operational security. The most valuable intelligence from the operation came in late 2004 and early 2005. Halabi photographed documents revealing Hezbollah's European weapons procurement network. The organization was purchasing Chinese-manufactured portable air defense missiles through German arms dealers, using fake end-user certificates claiming the weapons were destined for African nations. The missiles were actually being shipped to Lebanon through Mediterranean ports, concealed in commercial shipping containers marked as industrial equipment. This intelligence allowed Israel to pressure European governments to investigate and ultimately shut down several procurement channels. January 2005. At approximately 1400 hours, Halabi photographed what would become his most significant intelligence contribution: a complete organizational chart of Hezbollah's European financial network. The document identified 47 individuals by name, including their roles, locations, and contact information. It showed the command structure linking Beirut headquarters to European cells. It documented which individuals managed specific shell companies and which handled direct communications with Iranian financial controllers. The chart represented years of Hezbollah operational development, now exposed to Israeli intelligence through a single document. But exposure risk increased proportionally. With the operation's success, each document Halabi photographed slightly increased the probability that someone would notice unusual interest in files or observe suspicious behavior. The mathematics of espionage worked against long-term operations. The longer an asset remains active, the higher the cumulative risk of discovery. By mid-2005, Mossad's risk assessment indicated the operation had approximately 6 to 12 months before statistical probability favored compromise. The decision to extract Halabi came through unexpected circumstances. In August 2005, Hezbollah's leadership implemented a new security protocol requiring random polygraph examinations for personnel with access to sensitive information. The protocol was designed to identify potential informants following several security breaches unrelated to Halabi. When Halabi learned he was scheduled for polygraph examination in September, he activated the emergency signal, the red cloth in his apartment window. September 8, 2005. At 2200 hours, Mossad's extraction team crossed into Lebanon through the maritime route. The team consisted of 4 operatives using a modified commercial fishing vessel that regularly operated between Lebanese and Cypriot waters. The vessel's legitimate fishing business provided cover, and its captain was a paid Mossad asset. The extraction plan required Halabi to reach the Beirut coastline near the Ramlet al-Baida public beach at 0300 hours the following morning. While the extraction team approached Lebanese waters, Halabi prepared his family for immediate departure. He told his wife only that they faced danger, requiring urgent relocation, providing no details about the operation. His 3 children, aged 8, 11, and 13, were told they were taking an unexpected vacation. The family packed minimal belongings, taking only documents and small valuables that could fit in a single suitcase. At 0100 hours, they left their apartment, traveling by taxi to the coastal area under pretense of an early morning family gathering. The extraction itself was executed in 22 minutes. The fishing vessel approached to within 100 meters of shore. A small inflatable boat, operated by 2 Mossad operatives, reached the beach at 0315 hours. Halabi and his family waded into the water to meet the boat. By 03:37 hours, all 5 family members were aboard the fishing vessel, and it was moving toward international waters. Within 6 hours, they reached Cyprus, where Israeli intelligence maintained a processing facility for extracted assets. The discovery of Halabi's betrayal occurred approximately 36 hours after his departure. When he failed to appear for work on September 10th, Hezbollah security personnel visited his apartment and found it abandoned. Initial assessments suggested possible family emergency or personal crisis. However, when investigators examined his work area and reviewed recent document access logs, suspicion emerged. The polygraph examination scheduled for Halabi was now seen as potential trigger for flight. Within 1 week, Hezbollah's counterintelligence unit concluded that Halabi had likely been compromised and was cooperating with foreign intelligence. By September 20, 2005, Hezbollah leadership understood the full scope of the breach. A comprehensive security review revealed no physical evidence of espionage, no missing documents, no altered records, no suspicious communications. The lack of evidence initially seemed exculpatory, but investigators recognized that sophisticated intelligence operations leave minimal traces. The conclusion was based on circumstantial assessment. Halabi's access, his sudden disappearance after polygraph scheduling, and the timing suggested intelligence compromise. Every lead ended in operational dead ends, suggesting professional intelligence service involvement. The assessment pointed toward Israeli intelligence, but no proof existed. Hezbollah issued internal communications warning of the security breach. The organization didn't publicly acknowledge the incident, maintaining the appearance of operational security. Israel maintained complete silence, neither confirming nor denying any knowledge of Halabi or his activities. The denials were transparent to those in intelligence circles who understood Mossad's operational patterns. But transparency wasn't the point. Public ambiguity served both organizations' interests. Hezbollah avoided admitting the penetration depth, and Israel protected future operations by maintaining uncertainty about capabilities. The intelligence gained from Operation Ledger included comprehensive documentation of Hezbollah's financial networks spanning 3 continents. Tactical achievements included identification of approximately 60 operatives working in European financial roles, mapping of shell company structures used for money laundering, and documentation of Iranian funding mechanisms. Secondary benefits included intelligence that enabled Israeli pressure on European governments to investigate and ultimately prosecute several Hezbollah financial facilitators in Germany and Belgium during 2006 and 2007. The operational costs were significant diplomatically. Relations with Lebanon further deteriorated, though no formal diplomatic crisis emerged since Israel never acknowledged the operation. Operationally, the breach revealed Mossad's capability to recruit assets deep within Hezbollah's structure, forcing the organization to implement more stringent internal security measures, including expanded polygraph programs, compartmentalized information access, and increased surveillance of financial personnel. These measures made future recruitment operations more challenging. For Halabi and his family, the consequences were permanent exile. Mossad relocated them to South America, specifically to a city in Argentina where Middle Eastern immigrant communities provided cultural familiarity while maintaining distance from Hezbollah's operational range. Halabi received new identity documents and financial support to establish a small business. His children adapted to their new environment, learning Spanish and integrating into local schools. However, security protocols required the family to maintain low profile and avoid contact with Lebanese expatriate communities where Hezbollah maintained intelligence presence. Israeli intelligence assessed that Operation Ledger's benefits substantially outweighed its costs. The intelligence enabled disruption of Hezbollah weapons procurement, provided actionable information for counter-terrorism operations throughout Europe, and demonstrated Israel's capability to penetrate adversary organizations at high levels. Whether this proved correct would become clear over the following decade, as the intelligence gathered by Halabi informed Israeli strategic decisions regarding Hezbollah's capabilities and intentions. The operation marked an evolution in intelligence tradecraft, where financial intelligence achieved strategic significance comparable to military or political secrets. Traditional espionage focused on military plans, weapons systems, or political intentions. Operation Ledger demonstrated that financial networks, the mechanisms by which terrorist organizations sustain operations, represent equally valuable intelligence targets. The success influenced intelligence doctrine across multiple services, increasing emphasis on financial intelligence collection. The central paradox of Operation Ledger remains unresolved. Was Samir Halabi a pragmatist who chose survival over ideology? Or was he a traitor who betrayed comrades fighting what they perceived as legitimate resistance? Those who defend Mossad's approach argue that blackmail of one individual prevented terrorist operations that could have killed dozens or hundreds of civilians. They point to specific weapons shipments interdicted based on Halabi's intelligence, attacks potentially prevented through financial disruption, and the strategic value of understanding adversary capabilities. The calculus suggests one man's betrayal justified by lives potentially saved. Those who question the operation's ethics argue that coercive recruitment violates fundamental principles of human autonomy and dignity. They note that Halabi faced an impossible choice: cooperation or death, created artificially by Mossad's possession of blackmail material. They argue that intelligence services operating without ethical constraints risk becoming indistinguishable from the adversaries they oppose. The counter-argument suggests that Halabi's initial corruption, accepting bribes, created the vulnerability that intelligence services exploited, making his subsequent choices consequences of his own actions rather than purely external coercion. The answer reveals more about your worldview than about Halabi's choices. If you prioritize collective security and believe that preventing terrorist operations justifies coercive intelligence methods, Operation Ledger represents successful counterterrorism. If you prioritize individual rights and question whether ends justify means, the operation represents troubling ethical compromise. Both perspectives contain legitimate concerns grounded in different value systems. What's your take on whether Mossad's blackmail-based recruitment of Halabi was justified by the intelligence gained? Drop your perspective in the comments. If this story made you reconsider the ethical complexity of counterterrorism operations where individual rights conflict with collective security, hit that like button and share this analysis with others interested in the moral dimensions of intelligence work.